Okay, good morning to everybody. Welcome to this workshop on ethical issues. Also, welcome to the people that is perhaps listening us from far away. We are sorry. They are telling me where should I be to the sound to be transmitted. I think everybody knows that ethics has to be with honesty and moral issues. All of us, we try to do good science in a good fair. But there are many other aspects of ethics that sometimes in our everyday life we don't have time to think. So this is why there are regulations and there are people who has clear ideas on how should we handle several things, and for example, animal experimentation, or how should we handle with clinical issues, etc. And there is even more, is how the impact of the research and results that we are obtaining is affecting our society in the future, no? Particularly not only in the biomedical or biology or chemical field, but also in the technology field. And this is the reason because today we have invited 3 speakers that are going to tell us about different aspects related to ethics, and I think it's going to be very interesting. Our first speaker is José Ignacio Latorre, and I think he's going to make a very interesting and nice reflection on how the progress in the technological aspects is going to impact our everyday life. After that, there will be Luis Montoliu. He's going to speak about ethical aspects related to animal experimentations and things like that. And later on, we are happy to have also here with us Peter Moons, who is in a project with us, and he is going to tell about clinical issues and ethical aspects related to the handling of information from patients and clinical samples and all those things. So thanks for coming. I think we all are going to learn a lot. And now we are going to start with our first speaker, which is José Ignacio Latorre. He's a professor at the University of Barcelona. He's a physicist. He's on a very different field from us. He's working on quantum chromodynamics of elemental particles. And he has been doing his research also in the MIT, in the US, and also in the Institute of Niels Bohr in Copenhagen. Nowadays, he is also working on a very important project related to the construction of a new computer in the Supercomputing Center of Barcelona. And I just was told that he has been appointed to go to Abu Dhabi and to create a new center in Singapore in the next year. So he's going to leave the University of Barcelona to start this challenging project somewhere else. So José Ignacio, if you want, thank you for accepting being here today.
Thank you very much to you. How do it works? ¿Dónde? No va. Okay, good morning. How are you doing? So first let me start with a disclaimer. I'm a physicist. I've never seen a living creature in my life, so in my labs. So my approach to ethics will sound completely different from yours. Okay. Yet, I do think that ethics is a manifold problem, issue, and the basic idea for me is that we should all reflect on on ethics in general, because the result of this reflection should be laws that should be passed by the parliaments, and that means co-decision. So co-decision means that all of us should be involved in these ideas of ethics. And so my disclaimer is that I will tell you a little bit of what I've thought. Many people are, it happened just now, ask me how come that I'm, coming from elementary particle physics, I do talk about ethics. So the reason is that I started to work in the analysis of the data at CERN in the collider many years ago, and at some point in 1991, I understood that there was a thing called neural networks, and I applied them. It was a time where there was a winter of artificial intelligence. There was nobody believing that you could do things with neural networks. Well, the opposite is true. The amazing things we could do in artificial intelligence applied to the analysis of data is simply amazing. And let me just tell you that the work we did now, every data that comes from LHC has to be analyzed by these neural networks. Okay, we produce what is called parton distribution functions, which is how much momentum a quark has into a proton, and this is nowadays determined with artificial intelligence, not with a computation from first principles. There is no such a thing. And because I was following all this field in detail, I suddenly got a little bit worried by the recent progress that is being done in artificial intelligence with absolutely zero thinking about the consequences of this progress. So this is why I'm producing this talk, okay? And it's a very popular talk, absolutely zero technicalities. So let me go ahead, and my first comment is that I want to give what I understand is the background. Otherwise, nobody understands anything. So for me, you know, everybody says when science started, and everybody goes back to the Greeks and to Persia and the beginnings of thinking. But really, I like to start a serious analysis of science, starting with René Descartes and the Discours de la Méthode. This is 17th century. And why I started there? Because it's clear that he was the first to separate the analysis of the world, okay, of the physical world, from our mind, from God. So it was the first time that one could discuss whether it rains is not a problem of a God saying it should rain today, but rather that there is a physical phenomenon that is behind that. It's not only the idea of the separation of the three different issues, but also the method, la méthode. No? Reduce everything to the fundamental ingredients, and once you have that, go ahead, develop as much as possible the consequences of those fundamental postulates, and then finally bring them together. That's written in the 17th century. And as soon as this happened, you see, immediately you have the results of this kind of thing. So Newton, 50 years later, wrote for the first time postulates for physics, the Principia. Okay. Let me put in some way a name to every century. So I like to think that the 18th century was mechanicism, was mechanics, was the laws of Newton applied to every possible thing. 19th century definitely is chemistry and evolution in biology. First half of the century, physicists claim to have the two revolutions, so that's relativity and quantum mechanics. And definitely it produced something like the atomic bomb, would change the politics of the world. And the second half of the 20th century, I would claim that it's a time of biology, and definitely, and very few people mention that, of computation. So the theorems that control all our internet, the way we compress data, the way we communicate, the way we analyze every channel is due to Claude Shannon, and this is 1950. Okay, so in the beginning of the 21st century, I think it will be remembered because of artificial intelligence. That's my bet. Okay, and I make a prediction for the second half of the century. It will be the time that we will say, what the hell have we done? So let's go back to ethics. I realized a few months ago that we have 15,000 generations of Homo sapiens and only 4 generations of quantum mechanics. So that means that we are living the infancy of science. So for me, the ethics is, as I said, a very manifold problem or issue. And definitely I would divide into the piece of ethics that is related to the modification, improvement of humans. That includes everything, medicine. You take a drug, you're modifying your body, or changing your pieces of your body, or manipulating the DNA, or changing whatever it is about the humans. And even something crazier, which is substitute humans, okay? Which is apply artificial intelligence to do tasks that were done by humans. Of course, I cannot bring any information to you of relevance on the modification of humans. You are far more knowledgeable than me. So I will concentrate. Oh, it died. It died. Somebody died here. Can you open the file? Somebody modified my... Oh, you took this out. I never copied it inside. Yeah. By the way, that shows that the machine had a memory, because the sticker was out and it was working. So Claude Shannon would be happy. Oh, sorry. Do you know what's Basha? Basha? Do you know IQAC ethics? Again, sí. Vale, soy sí, como es. Okay. So I was saying that I would only talk about the substitution of humans, so artificial intelligence. So there are, again, very many things to discuss about that. First is the different problems related to ethics of the research and the ethics of the applications, which is achieved with the research. To give you an example, the same could be said about atomic bomb. Does it make sense to discover what is the nucleus of an atom? What are the forces that act? What are the energy that can be liberated over there? So that makes sense. Another issue is how we apply that knowledge, whether we produce a bomb or we produce a power station. So this is one of the issues. Another issue is whether the progress that we are making is public or is it private? It's a big thing. That is related to the idea whether the results of the research are open or they are private, they are proprietary. And then something that very few people mention, which is the difference between legal, illegal, and illegal. And now we are living a world of illegality, so that there are no laws for many of the things that we are working on. Ahora no funciona. Now it works. So let me finish this introduction with one of these sentences that I like. And this is by John von Neumann. You may know that John von Neumann was one of the brightest people in the 20th century. He was the guy who wrote for the first time the postulates of quantum mechanics in 1930-31 on a book. So we always mention people like Schrödinger, Einstein, Dirac, Bohr, but the postulates of quantum mechanics were written by Johnny von Neumann. He was also the guy, he had plenty of progress done in mathematics, and he was the guy who invented the structure of a computer, of a PC. The fact that you have an input-output device, you have a memory, and you have a CPU. This is what is called the von Neumann architecture of a computer. And on top of all these things, he invented the Monte Carlo methods for simulations. So quite a remarkable person. He wrote this sentence in 1950. Okay. He said, the ever-accelerating progress of technology gives the appearance of approaching some essential singularity in the history of the race, beyond which human affairs, as we know them, could not continue. And he also mentions technological progress will become incomprehensibly rapid and complicated. Okay. 1950. Okay, this is remarkable. So to organize my discussion, and I was asking whether we could have less talk and more questions, because I like always to get the feedback. So what I've done is to prepare a trip, a traveling set of transparencies, of slides, in 6 stages, okay? So I'm going 6 stages talking about ethics. So as I said, to get the background for artificial intelligence, my first step is a brief history of machines. And there are 3 stages within this stage. My first one is that humans made instruments, made tools, starting in the primitive ages. And those tools, if you think carefully, all of them are trying to produce power. They're trying to improve the physical strength of humans. That's how you hunt, that's how you lift weights, that's how you move things. So we made machines from the very beginning to now, which are powerful. And the first observation I would like to bring here is that we are weaker beings nowadays. Myself, I keep telling that I have very thin arms. I would, fight in the Middle Ages against somebody else, and I would die in the first go. Okay, in the first go, I'm done. Okay, I have 0 muscle. So we have a human physical decline because we got the power into the machines. It's no longer necessary to climb stairs. We take the elevator. No longer necessary to walk. We take the car or a taxi, and so on and so forth. So we simply have a decline. Then we produce machines that compute. That's not trivial, okay, because we had the abacus in the old times, in Persia, by the way. But this is nothing compared to the idea that we have an algorithm that I can tell him what to do with iterations of whatever kind of programming. It is worth telling that the first loop, a do in Fortran, a while in many languages, the first programming loop, you may know it was done by a woman. It was Ada Lovelace, the only child of Lord Byron. And how come that a romantic girl produced the first algorithm? Well, it was due to the fact that Lord Byron left his wife to never return to England. And the wife was so angry that educated her daughter into sciences to avoid that she loved the poetry of his father. Okay, and that's how Ada Lovelace became a fantastic mathematician, but due to the rules of the time, she never could join the professional mathematicians, although she would write letters to them. And it was Babbage, the guy who was trying to conceive a machine that could do an arbitrary computation, and he wrote some notes, but they were not too clear. And she was asked to make a translation of some notes. But while doing the translation, she wrote a notebook, and there she wrote for the first time the concept of a do loop, Ada Lovelace. Now, the result of having these enormous machines that were triggered in the middle of the century has produced a decline in our mental ability to compute. Okay, I always claim that if you go out for dinner with 7 people and you get the bill, when you divide by 7, there are faces there. Everybody looking for the phone to divide by 7. We have forgotten even the rules of division, let alone a square root. Okay, that's forbidden. So there is a mental decline. As soon as we produce machines that are better than us in a task, we get a decline. Okay, And that's the third generation. We are making now machines that make decisions. Really, they make decisions. You may know that as of this year, the water in Barcelona is purified by a algorithm, by a neural network. There's nobody there taking the decision. It's a machine. So those are decisions that matter. I mean, all the water of Barcelona is decided in this way. The traffic, many of the things are decided on neural networks. So what is the natural consequence of that? If we don't make the decisions, there will be a decline in ethics. Okay? Because ethics is what makes a difference between what we consider good or bad, which is a decision. Okay. So this is my first stage. Advanced artificial intelligence is tantamount to delegation of decisions, and that we should be aware of that. I love to bring an example to push people, which is that one of the most amazing things is that many people nowadays look for a companion for life, for a partner, for a boy, girlfriend, with applications, with some apps in your phone. So the pre-selection of your future companion for life is done by an algorithm. It's not you that you decide. No, it's the algorithm that says. So we are so happy with that, okay? And all of us are using that. But that's amazing, no? It's not your father, your mother, like in the ancient times. No, now it's an algorithm that decides the 100 people that you will meet, okay? So my second is to tell you something about quantum. And why not a century with 2 lines? You could add so many lines. This is what people call narratives. Narratives of the 20th century. This is a particular narrative. Not the one of biology, not the one of politics, not the one of economy. It's the one of quantum mechanics and the one of artificial intelligence. On quantum mechanics, it's the 7th of October of 1900 that Planck wrote the first equation that is quantum. It took 26 years to understand the equations, and that's the construction of Schrödinger equation. And then 30 is the postulates. But as soon as 1947, we constructed the first transistor. This is semiconductor quantum mechanics. So it's how many atoms glue together and then how you see transmission there. And you have laser in 1960, which is a quantum state of light. It's a coherent state of an undefined number of photons. They work as a single wave function. Or the construction of GPS. Why I wrote GPS? Because, well, everybody should know that GPS is possible because we have atomic clocks. Precision of 1 part in 10 to the 13. Otherwise, you would not have GPS. And not only that, these 30 satellites, around 30 satellites orbiting the Earth, time flows at a different pace over there as here because of 2 effects. Because it's a motion that you see, and that produces a change of the speed of time. And second, because they are in a gravitational field, and that's general relativity. So special relativity and general relativity, they operate in opposite signs, and if you would not correct for relativity, GPS would be lost more than 11 kilometers per day. Okay, so this is the idea that the delay of the clocks in orbit and on Earth are of the order of 40 microseconds. Then you have WW, I put it because that's done at CERN, but that's the internet is thanks. Why you don't pay anything to use internet? Because it was on a public project. Okay. Otherwise, you may know the old people may remember that Microsoft tried to buy internet at some point, and it was forbidden. Okay. Factorization. Now you don't understand. You will understand in a while. And finally, 3 weeks ago, we had quantum supremacy, and I will tell you about quantum supremacy. On the other side, it's in the 30s that Church, post-Turing, explained for the first time that making a computation is doing a physical process. That's why phones heat up. That's why you use energy. That's why the Mare Nostrum spends 1.5 million euros a year on computation, because you need energy to do a computation. That was understood in the 1930s. Then you have the first machine, IQAC, or you have Shannon with the first theorems. And then you have artificial intelligence starting in the 60s with many winters, they call, because the attempt to do things was so crazy that didn't work and people complained. Or the classification of complexity classes, NP versus P, non-deterministic polynomial versus polynomial. What are difficult problems, what are easy problems? It's an amazing endeavor to understand the complexity classes for computation. And it turns out that in the last 10 years, we have discovered what carries the name of deep neural networks. Okay? We'll talk about that later. Many things have happened, but we have learned to learn. And that's the essential thing. We have failures, we have automatization, we have inference, we have tried so very many different things, but finally we have learned to learn. Okay, that's a big achievement that has happened on the last 50 years. To give you a hint of what happened is that in the very beginning, starting in the 60s with the first computers, people said we can substitute a medical doctor. And that's a complete table of flow of decisions. I said artificial intelligence is about decisions. Okay, so this is how to decide the treatment on a patient. And that was applied. So the idea that humans should encode their amazing knowledge into algorithms was the first idea. We should do that. So it's all about decision rules, and you need a fantastic medical doctor to tell you what to do. And this is behind the first steps on medicine, on playing chess, on giving a loan to you for your buying an apartment, or the natural language, understanding humans. It was a profound failure. I mean, every one of those things didn't work. But there are funny things, and this is an entertaining talk, supposedly. So what I brought to you is one of the attempts to make a psychiatrist. Okay, this was under the name of Elisa, okay, MIT, 1966. And this is an example of a real thing. It's a patient. The patient was a woman, a real woman. There are thousands of these things. And she says, all men are equal. And Elisa says, in which sense? And then they always bother us with issues. And could you be more specific? Well, my boyfriend forced me to come here. Your boyfriend made you come here? Yeah, he says I'm always depressed. I'm sorry to hear that you are always depressed. Elisa, it's true, I'm not happy. Do you think that coming here will make you less unhappy? So this is an extract of a real discussion in 1966, and you may wonder what happened with this project. It was stopped by MIT because they realized it was not particularly good. It was not doing good to the people, but the patients got extremely attached to Elisa. So they had to stop it, okay? So if you ever think whether you can be in love with a machine, we have some evidence that this is possible, okay? Now, the new idea came later, and the idea is not to copy the knowledge of humans, but copying the structure of the brain. So simulate neurons and connect them in a way that you put data and you end up with a result. These connections, these synapses, artificial synapses, will carry the weights of every element in the input to produce an output. Of course, the task which is done depends on the connections, on how you connect your brain. So there is a process which is learning, which is nothing but training. And we have nowadays a big classification of training methods, which is supervised. I know what I should get. Unsupervised, I want to understand categories of data, or reinforcement learning, which is the big new thing in the last 10 years. The success of chess or of many other tasks is coming from reinforcement learning. And you apply them to the very same problems as before, and now we have a success. Okay? Little by little, we let me just mention here chess, okay? Because we'll talk about the others. Chess, there was a program based on rules, decision rules. The best chess players in the world had come and tell the machine how to play. If there is an open column, put your rock there, okay? Openings, there are plenty of experts programming openings. All these produce a program that was a master called a stockfish that would beat every human in a split second. Now, 2-3 years ago, I don't remember now, Google produced a completely new algorithm that was not trained by humans, only knew the rules by themselves, but there was applied what we call reinforcement learning, and it played against himself for 4 hours. And that machine destroyed stockfish and play in a completely different way. Not only that, but the very same algorithm could play Go and could play every other game. So that's impressive, okay? So we have the evidence that humans have discovered rules. Those rules are not the best. There are other ways of playing chess which are better. In particular, people are now analyzing one after the other every game played by AlphaZero is the name of the algorithm. And I can tell you, if you like chess, it's amazing how it plays. Now, another example is cat versus dog. So you feed thousands of pictures of cats and dogs. Some of them are highly non-trivial. Look at this poor cat who is upside down. And you have to discover whether it's a cat or a dog. How things are done? Well, the discovery under the name of convolutional neural networks is that you have a number of layers that only do trivial things like discovering corners and lines, just like our vision cortex. And then other layers will process them. So actually it's organized in layers. The first detects corners and lines. The second detects whether it's a cat or a dog. Finally, you detect whether the cat is on the table. So you make meaning. So there are layers of complexity, okay, of understanding complexity. We have discovered that. That's the best way we have nowadays. Not only that, but I will not explain, but the success is coming from what is called the degenerative adversary networks. So actually you make two neural networks. One that does that, and finally decides whether it's a cat or a dog, but now you make another neural network that tries to generate cats and dogs with pixels. And the two fight. So one neural network is trying to make faces which are fake, and the other is trying to make discover the two things. And the competition between the two neural networks is a training mechanism. And this is an amazing success, the adversary networks. So before we thought that this is the algorithm, and humans were saying, no, you are bad, you have to improve. Now we make another neural network to tell them that he is bad. Now, all these things is making that artificial intelligence is ubiquitous. So the new frontiers, I guess you have listened about these things somewhere, but one of them is generation of content. So things that never existed now are made by artificial intelligence. In particular, you can see the examples for music, IVA, DeepBack. They produce music for movies and for games, for playing games. Or Vincent, who is a program for drawing. So it's producing examples of pictures for you. You may have seen that there is a Rembrandt, which is really amazing, an artificial Rembrandt painting. Or Nuz, is a Spanish guy who is amazing, who is now running a company in London. Last year, he injected 300,000 pieces of news, artificial news. They are true. It's not fake news. They are correct news, but there is no journalist there. It's automatically done. Okay, amazing. His company is working very well. Others are advice. Let me come back later to that. Or one of the main things, I have a friend who is working here in Barcelona on interaction human-machine with the elder people, how to deal with. There are 150,000 women, very old women, that will never step the street again in their lives. Okay, they cannot walk. They are in an apartment. Nobody takes care of them. Would you accept that there is a call by an artificial intelligence to that person? So this is one of the programs, and it is financed obviously by the European Union. Education, whether you can use these things for education, treating your customers. One of the most amazing developments in the recent years is emotions, detecting and generating emotions, artificial emotions, and other things related to the interface between humans and relation between humans and machines, like text-to-voice, sentiment analysis. I was 2 days ago with a guy who is getting money from the European Union to analyze all Twitter, to analyze sentiment analysis, so whether there is hate, whether there are love. But why? He's doing that for the immigration. So they are trying to detect which are the cities in Europe that are more open to receive immigrants. And this is done by artificial intelligence nowadays. The query and answer, as I mentioned, this is the elder, or the personal assistants. I guess you all know Alexa, and you know all these things. And the changes that will come here will be surprising for everybody. I can only tell you that. There is an internet site where you can, there is a sentence which is read by a voice, and you are recommended to do it with the opposite of your gender. So I'm a man, so a woman reads that sentence. Then I read it myself, and then she repeats the sentence with my silences and way of thinking. It's very impressive, because you hear yourself with the voice of the other gender. Okay. So this is going ahead. And look, an autonomous cars, runs, military boot, there is an enormous amount of things going on. So delegate decisions. Let me go to two particular things. Medical diagnosis, and as you may know, Watson, it's a product by IBM that is selling advice for medical doctors. And of course, the argument is very simple. Watson can be fed with thousands of examples, hundreds of thousands in some cases, hundreds of treatments, adequate to every specific country or weather or whatever. There is an overwhelming amount of data fed over there, and then you apply inference, Bayesian inference. Can you do better? Can a doctor do better than that? Probably not, because the doctor will have only a partial amount of information. A machine can be trained with a gigantic amount of data. So this is an example. The other is the law, which is less known. It's the Department of Justice in the States that decided to produce a neural network that advises the judges. And in particular, there are two things, about the bail and about prison. Okay? And of course, because this is based, the law in the States is based on jurisprudence, so it's a fact that you can go back to your data and see what is the closest similar case and apply it. So actually, this produces an amazing thing. It's a judge should now justify why he is not following the advice of that program. It's subtle, okay, very subtle, because the decision affects the life of a human. Okay. Now, this brings us to the detail of programming ethics, or making the laws for ethics. Well, why don't we take the very same examples we had before? Well, it happened that, it was in Denmark, I think, that Watson made an error in a diagnosis. And it was stop, the recommendation of being used for every medical doctor in the country. Second, if it is so good, will everybody be able to use it, or will it be only for the people who pay for that? And then there is human reluctance on the side of the doctor and the side of some patients. The errors is amazing, because think of if there were no cars in Spain, okay, no cars. And suddenly a guy comes and says, we can produce a new machine that will take you anywhere. But there is a price for that. Oh, really? I will be able to move anywhere? Yes, but there is a price. A few thousand people will die every year because of that machine. You know, we would not approve that. We would simply forbid it. That's the situation for artificial intelligence. We are at the level that we do not accept a single error from artificial intelligence, which is not the case in the old times, in the old machines. So we are much more strict on that. And the law, the example of the justice, what happened is that after using the algorithm for some time, it turned out that it was obviously clear that it had a bias against Afro-Americans. Why? Because the program had been fed with data where most of the people that were in prison were Afro-Americans. So, of course, the neural network learned that Afro-Americans are bad in general. So that says that in the training, you can bias the result for gender, for race, for economical reasons, for whatever. So you have to be very careful. So as you see, these are examples that says that we are applying things without laws and detailed laws, and without thinking. And just to give you an example that things are not simple, many people use the example of the car. So I invented this other example. Okay? So you have programming, I think, is not simple because in general there is a dilemma. Okay? And the dilemma is that there is no good solution for a problem. So this is a guy, a robber, who is entering in a bank, and without asking any question, he kills the first guy. You have an artificial intelligence that controls a weapon that can eliminate this guy. And what do? Do you kill him or not? Okay? Well, that's an ethical discussion, killing a human. Okay? So let's go back to history and think what people have said about ethics. So I go back to Aristotle and says, no, ethics is about knowledge as a goal. Well, that doesn't help a lot, okay? Now, Kant, categorical imperative, says, treat others as you wish to be treated. Well, I wish not to be killed, so I should not kill the guy, okay? I should do something else, but not kill the guy. Or I go to Bentham and Stuart Mill and the philosophy of utilitarianism, which is really what dominates our society nowadays, and he says, seek the well-being of the majority. Of course, there are 5 other customers in the bank. I want to save their lives. Then I kill the guy. So choose your ethics. You have different solutions. So that is clearly an example that it is not easy. Let me say that on top, now we are programming these kind of decisions on autonomous cars. And the questions are, who decides on these ethics? Who programs that? Who supervises the programming of these things? For the autonomous cars, the example is well known. The car is going, there is an accident, no time to brake, turn left, turn right. On the left there is a young man, on the right is an older man like me. Who do you kill? Now, I guess many people say, well, kill the old man, not kill me, because there is a young man that will do something. Okay, but look, it turns out that it's so fast that he sees the faces and recognizes the record of the guy and sees that the young man is a criminal, and I'm doing good for my society, and I run a company that produces many jobs. Okay, now we should kill the young guy. So I ask you, what do you think is the emerging decision that people agree nowadays? Do you have any clue? So many people are defending something which is amazing, randomness. You throw a coin and you see one or the other. People claim nowadays that the most ethical solution is randomness. Non-trivial, huh? So a guy, I'm killed by a car. It was a matter of chance. Well, other people have ideas like this guy who is a little bit crazy about extrapolated coherent volition. Look for the cases where humans agreed in the past on something and extrapolate these kind of decisions. So make artificial ethics. Apply artificial intelligence to define ethics. Why not? I mean, there are so very many examples in history that maybe you correlate the well-being of societies with a kind of law. Okay, so maybe that is a way to decide on things. Or, well, I like to use the word banality of good for Hannah Arendt. No, she said, woman philosopher after the Holocaust said that to do the evil you don't need to be very intelligent. Average people can be very bad. Well, average people can be very good also. No, so why not postulate that all the programming should be based on the banality of the default should be treat well humans, which is not the case, by the way, now. Data and ethics, I will not talk because you are all exposed to these things. So all these European General Data Protection Regulation, fortunately, is the first step. These are not decisions. These are simply the data you need for the decisions. I don't know if you are doing that, but in the last month, I've been asking to be eliminated for every list of the spam that I get, and my email has reduced the amount of spam dramatically. Okay, I encourage that you do the same things. The new ethical questions that many people discuss, and I will not stop, but if you want, we can discuss afterwards, is the machines that substitute humans will produce a long-term problem in the economy, okay? Because nobody will pay pensions, neither social security, neither they will get money, the humans. So how to deal with these things? One of the ideas is to bring machines to the legal status, legal entities. Robots will pay taxes, and that faces the idea that corporations will disclaim their responsibility. That's a very sophisticated problem. I love the idea that robots pay taxes. You take a task which is done by a human. The company puts a machine. Suddenly, the owner of the company makes money, saves money because he's not paying a human. But then there is a jobless, nobody pays for the social security, and no pensions. So why not do the opposite? The robot that substitutes a human. Robot is a big name for an algorithm. Now we'll get an account of, bank account. He will get the money for his work. He will pay taxes. He will pay social security, and he will repair himself. And he will teach the new generation. He will pay the research for the new generation of robots, as we pay the education of our kids. Why not? That would be a transition, a smoother transition to a new world. The non-trivial issue of machines as moral agents, because that seems obviously not. Well, think of pets. Okay, pets do have are moral agents, and they have rights. So where is the line? Where is the line where you stop these things? Now, in April 9th, the European Union produced for the first time guidelines to do research in artificial intelligence and applications. There are three big categories. First, respect the laws of your own country. Then, 7 principles for ethics. One is human supervision, robust and secure programming, respect privacy, transparency, diversity, no discrimination, social well-being and respect for nature, and finally, accountability. And what is more important, whether you implement these things or not should be verified. So there are 2 separate states, the generation of these algorithms and the verification of such algorithms. And that should be passed by each parliament. Okay, but the practice is that here you have a picture in China where all the kids are scanned their faces every 30 seconds to see who is paying attention, who is not, and to which school they will go or not. So there is an amazing misuse of artificial intelligence, fake news, fake profiles, bots, coordinated attacks in cybersecurity, non-human jobs, interviews, zillions of things which are being done nowadays. I'm approaching the final steps. Quantum again. Why? Well, because we have produced our first quantum computers. And let me tell you why this is relevant. So quantum computers use qubits, not bits. And that's the idea that in classical physics, state can be a bit, can be a 0 or a 1, while the wave function, the Schrödinger wave function, can describe the superposition of 0 and 1. That's a superposition principle in quantum mechanics. That means that the quantum computer can carry computations, considering all possibilities in parallel. Okay, it's the ultimate quantum parallel computer. And that means that as you increase, if you have 1, it's 2. If you have 2 qubits, you have 4 options, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. If you have n, you have 2 to the n. So it's an exponential advantage. So what can we do with a quantum computer? Many things, but there is one which is crazy. We can break every cryptographic protocol. To be precise, I want you to understand it's not me who says that. I took a picture of Hillary Clinton in the campaign where she lost, saying we need a Manhattan-like project for cryptography given the threat of quantum computers. Europe put a flagship in place with 1 billion in 2019. China has a city devoted to quantum computation, which is Hefei. They have a satellite for quantum cryptography. The amount of money is of the order of 20, it's really written here, 10 billion. MIT says, the National Security Agency says we must act now against the threat of quantum computation. In particular, NSA has produced a recommendation of not to use a number of protocols, all these things which are transparent for you. You don't know, but all these things are going on in your phone, all of them. So there is a de-recommendation of using a number of protocols, and again, it is explicitly said because of the quantum computers use qubits and so on, and this is not a threat. It's starting to be a reality, because as you can see, on 23 September, there was a pre-announcement that Google has produced for the first time a computation that cannot be reproduced with the largest supercomputer on Earth, classical supercomputer, 53 qubits. It's a useless computation, but it cannot be reproduced. It took 200 seconds on the quantum computer. It would take 10,000 years on a supercomputer, which is much bigger than Mare Nostrum. So this is the kind of quantum computers. It looks very nice because it's in gold, but the fact is that this is only a fridge. It's cooling down. Down here, the temperatures are 15 millikelvin, 15 on top of 0. Okay, so minus 273 degrees. Why there? Because there quantum mechanics works. Is where the domain of quantum mechanics, because you freeze the motion of the particles, you eliminate decoherence. So what is a quantum computer good? Well, break crypto, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it is a thing. But quantum chemistry. For the first time, we think we will deal with molecules with a real computer, with computation, rather than trial and error, as we do in many examples of discovery of drugs. So we can bring quantum mechanics to an efficient simulation. Okay? We can do banking, risk analysis, all the Monte Carlos which are done every night all over the world. Or as we are working now in my team, we are working on artificial intelligence, bringing hybrid classical quantum algorithms. So we do reinforcement learning of the way we feed the quantum computer to do the computation. So it's really spectacular, the kind of things we can do, and any optimization problem. Who owns a quantum computer? Well, they are private. For the first time in physics, we see private things on the top. So it's Google, it's IBM, it's Rigetti, it's a company again with 60 million to make this computer. The public, the European flagship, is only sponsoring one effort which is completely behind. China, nobody knows, it's secret. So what are the guarantees of here that we have any ethical use of these things? We don't have any. And I finally want to entertain you with a singularity. I'm only quoting things. So extrapolate for the half of this century, 21st century. Many people have done that, and they go on the category of science fiction, but we should keep an eye on these things. Again, you remember von Neumann? The very same sentence, look at the word, singularity. We are approaching some essential singularity. This is the origin of this set of ideas of the singularity. Is actually von Neumann. And you may know that there is a Singularity University in the States, a place devoted to discuss all these issues. Here is the first definition of this controversial guy. But, well, Kurzweil, he might be controversial on his way of phrasing the future, but he's the guy who was behind Siri, okay? So he's the guy who made the recursive Boltzmann machines to understand humans. So he has some credit. He says something that I completely agree here. There are no inherent barriers to our being able to reverse engineer the operating principles of human intelligence and replicate these capabilities in the more powerful computational substrates that will become available in the decades ahead. The human brain is a complex hierarchy of complex systems, but it does not represent a level of complexity beyond what we are already capable of handling. Okay? The best proposal to understand what's going on is this idea of this guy, who is a well-respected guy in this kind of world, is Nick Bostrom. He says, the argument is so obvious, let an ultra-intelligent machine be defined as a machine that can far surpass all the intellectual activities of any man, however clever. Since the design of machine is one of these intellectual activities, an ultra-intelligent machine could design even better machines. There would then be, unquestionably, an intelligent explosion, and the intelligence of man would be left far behind. Thus, first ultra-intelligent machine is the last invention that man need ever make. Okay, and he goes on. So that's the idea, that at some point we may provide algorithms that correct themselves. And as soon as they are trained to reinforce whatever they are doing, it's not us who code, but they code, okay? There are efforts along this line, yes, okay? This is not science fiction. People are doing these things. And there are issues here whether there would be a peaceful, unique, conscious, or ethical. There are so many things written here that we can discuss. But on the peacefulness, I would like to bring you the ideas of Steven Pinker, a Harvard professor, a student of Chomsky, who said, yes, he has very beautiful books about pacification of humanity, although we think that we are not. We are very violent when you take data seriously and without bias. It's amazing how we are going to a more peaceful society. So actually, the number that is amazing is the probability of being killed by another human. And that probability is going down steadily along the centuries. Okay. By far, the wrong alimentation is more dangerous than violence in the United States nowadays. There are amazing numbers there. And as you may notice, I like philosophy. Why not going back to Diderot? No? He says, if the union of a human soul and a machine is impossible, let somebody demonstrate it to me. If it is possible, let somebody tell me the effects of such an union. And this was started, he collected his works in 1774 till they were published a century later. But as you can see, there are people that started to think about these things in the 18th century already. I'm done, my conclusions. Everything can be programmed. Tell me one thing cannot be programmed. Tell me one. Everything. Can program everything. People are programming emotions, you may think they're primitive. Wait. 10 years ago, nobody believed we had translation as we have nowadays. Nobody would believe we had Siri. Nobody thought that these things were possible. They are there. They are real. Okay? They are real. So that means that there is a new era for ethics, because none of the philosophers of the past ever thought that there would be decisions done by non-humans. Okay, so it's tabula rasa. We have to start to think how to program these things. Myself, I wanted to have one slide on my own way of understanding these things. I have the feeling, and I guess it will be the same on your branch, people doing chemistry, doing biology, you are working on the daily basis with very advanced ideas, and you see what's happening, what will happen. So what is the ethics in your work? Okay. So I just wanted to mention a few things. So should I not work on quantum computation? It's a weapon. Okay, it's a weapon in the 21st century. Well, I think not. This is not correct. Knowledge is there. It's absolute knowledge. So it's not about whether the knowledge is good or bad. It's about the use of the knowledge. So choose your subject without any prejudice. Discuss plenty with colleagues. For me, that's essential. Okay, I do communicate a lot with many people about ethical issues. Do outreach. Go out and talk to the people. Okay, I do a lot. I've been with politicians, with people in corporations. Talk to them. I know it's not relevant when you look at the big picture, but now Telefonica has a department for ethics. Okay, has a person plus a number of people around on ethics, and so on. And Google stopped doing the glasses, you may remember. They stopped, and they withdrew from Boston Dynamics, from the robots for the military, and they have an internal ethical code. If you work in Google, you sign a contract saying you will not do certain things. Talk to politicians. I think this is important because we need the laws, and many of them don't understand that their job is not disputing, but making laws. Okay, that's separation of power. Parliament are the laws. And finally, participate in shaping the new ethics, because it's a matter of co-decision. No, as I said, ethics is co-decision. Why not scientists be part of the decisions about ethics? I think it's amazing that there are so many laws which are passed without the voice of any scientist. Now, we had one scientist in the government, but previously, out of 17 ministers, there were 0 scientists. 0, okay? And how can you, in a table, take a right decision if nobody understands the issue? Nobody, okay? How can energy? How come that nobody knows what a joule is? and they decide. Okay, so that's it. Thanks.
I think you will need the answers because you gave us very issues to think about it and where the progress is going, how are we going to handle of this. So I'm sure there is people that would like to ask or share with him and with all of us our thoughts on how the progress of artificial intelligence is going to affect our lives. So, nobody?
Hi, I really enjoyed the talk. I have a question about the singularity or the future prospects, in the sense that you said that artificial intelligence will be able to reproduce any mental process or any activity can be put into an algorithm, let's put it like this. But to which sense, I mean, so far what I've seen about this is artificial intelligence performing many different tasks, but to which sense we humans, apart from the rational capabilities of doing these tasks, have many biological motivations that really, I mean, we really apply rationality to doing things to become more happy. Whereas, I don't know to which extent machines would like to be happy, or if there is a, I mean, something like, would the Watson computer at any point decide, no, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer.
That's science fiction.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
but I mean,
is
is this something qualitatively different from, or is it just an extra step? What do you think?
I think we are conditioned, and I think you agree, by our origins. So we have a biological substrate. Okay, so we are conditioned for the competition for resources. So that's why we are violent, because there were few resources and we had to fight for them. But if you come to the idea that artificial intelligence is not based on a biological substrate, but on a silicon substrate, and that's for free. So there is no competition for that. And there is no need for air or water or whatever. Okay, and think of quantum computers which cost zero energy. I didn't mention that, but the quantum computer follows the laws of physics. So all these artificial intelligence will end up with a completely different conditioning environment, which is from ours. So I don't see why it should follow our way of thinking. Okay, I think it would be different. I go back to the Greeks, and now when they said that the ultimate goal of humans is wisdom, and why not thinking that Watson, if clever enough, would simply spend all his computational power to discover whether the Goldbach conjecture is true or not in mathematics. I don't know. These kind of things. So, what are the ultimate secrets of prime numbers? No, the ultimate things that, or explore. Look, a machine which is eternal, because on the silicon you don't die, no? There is no future. I mean, time is irrelevant, no? You're eternal. You can explore the universe, you can go anywhere. Well, all these things have been said by people, no? I mean, we are anxious. We have angst. Why? Because we die. If you don't die, you're relaxed, no? You know? So why not all these things? Well, but look, if you like these ideas, Nostrom is the guy to be read. He's a very clever guy, and every point he brings all positions, and he's right to the point. I mean, it's a very entertaining thing. Now, all these people, so many people. I've all my life I've been with people that don't believe. Well, these machines will never do that. As soon as they do it, they say, but they will not do the other thing. No, all my life, since '91, I can tell you, zillions of people have claimed that this would not be possible. In '98, I think, in '97, I was with one of the guys who is on top of the chess in Spain. And we went for dinner for some peculiar reason. And I said, hey, man, you have a few years with beating the machines. How a machine could ever beat a human? And he was really, very strong on his opinion. I said, look, I can program a machine to multiply all numbers from 1 to 1,000,000. I cannot do it. The machine can do it. I don't see why you say this is not possible. It took 1 year. No? It took 1 year. Now, and this idea, and people say, no, but we will not love machines. Come on, you love people talk to the cat. There are many husbands that prefer the car to the wife. I mean, how can you say you will not be in thrill? I mean, I put the picture of Ex Machina, but take her or whatever. I mean, there are people already thinking, and they know that you love more things than humans at some point. Okay, it's a fact. So, and then let me say one more thing. Sorry that I took so long on this answer, but many people say, but they are not conscious. I don't know if you are conscious. I don't know. And it was Turing, Alan Turing, who wrote in 1950 the paper, Can Machines Be Intelligent? And he says, right in the introduction, that's not the right question. It's whether humans can distinguish whether a machine is intelligent or not, and that's the origin of the Turing test. Okay, you pass the question through a curtain, and you have to decide whether that's a human or not. Let me say that there is the moral Turing test, which is very easy to pass by machines. That the decisions are morally acceptable. So, come on, be prepared. It's not whether it's conscious or not, it's whether I will relate with it as if it was conscious. And this will happen yes or yes. There was another question? Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you very much for this exciting lecture. I've enjoyed it very much. Most people may think that should we be frightened about the future? And I was happy to learn from you that you are optimistic. Knowledge is there. And I think we will foresee, we will cure, for example, Alzheimer, 100 years ago discovered. Nobody, no cure. And I hope that we will find any cure for other diseases. So we should be optimistic.
I am.
But you also talk about errors. For example, I'm fascinated about the discovery of this genome editing that also will bring us new discoveries for diseases. We will cure rare diseases and so on. But you know, the use of the technology in the hands of people that you talk about universal code of ethics code of ethics, but is this universal? We have the examples of the Chinese, I think the Russian, the Chinese girls that have been produced, and once we have edited incorrectly and passed it into new generations. What do you think about this?
Well, the first, you were wondering about being positive or optimistic or not. I am. Okay? I'm a compulsive optimist. Why? Because it's an issue that we are bumped by bad news, but this is an artifact of our society. It was in the books by Pinker. You can see the graphics of how many positive news and negative news you receive on the New York Times. And in the 1950s, it went into the negative. Before the 50s, it was mostly positive, and now it's negative. It's a bias. It's a good news. A piece of news is that something bad happens. If you do good research here, you will never be on the news. Okay? So it's a bias. So please discount that. So look for objective ways of measuring whether we are doing well or bad. And look, it's a fact that we are doing research and we live well. So something good has been going on in the world, no? I mean, take Spain 80 years ago. It was not like that. Something good has happened, okay? So this idea that everything is bad systematically, I think is an easy way of thinking that we should eliminate, okay? That's not deep thinking, okay? This idea, everything is bad. No, come on. It's not true. And whether we will, you mentioned Parkinson and so on. My father has Parkinson, so I know that well. Whether I think it will be solved, of course. Tell me one problem we have not solved in the history of humanity. Tell me one. Of course, you don't solve it immediately now and whatever, but we will understand every detail of that, and we will see the way to stop these things and so on. So I'm fully optimistic in the progress of science as an endeavor, okay? And the third thing you mentioned is the misuse. And may I remind you that as soon as the humans invented fire, they burned a guy there, they put at stake the guy. Or as soon as we discovered the laws of the balance, we throw stones to the other guy. So is there any technological advance that has not been used against humans? No, I think everyone. We discover fantastic things, the laws that control matter at the ultimate scale of 1 Fermi, the nucleus. And the first thing we did was an atomic bomb. Now, this is unstoppable. Now, in the long term, then we correct for that. One of the big examples is the Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution, well, formally, you make machines that will save our work. No. The first thing that happened is that people worked for 80 hours in terrible conditions. The air could not be breathed by anybody. The water was contaminated. Everything was a disaster, and we are needing centuries to correct for the wrong transition to the technology. Now, little by little, we are doing it better and better. I hope that the future of artificial intelligence is full of problems, of pitfalls, of dangers. But I'm optimistic. I think that we will rule the things in the right way in the long term. I won't see it, but I'm convinced. Please read the books by Pinker about pacification, and the other on defense, on the illustration, no? of the, in English, illustration, it's another name, the lightning, okay? And then you see real data for one time, and then it's amazing that we are doing much better.
Okay, I think one of the problems with the perception of this artificial intelligence is that often this is being presented as a threat, something that fears people. And I think probably you would agree with this. I think it should be presented as an opportunity, because there's many things that can come along for benefit for the humankind. And why do you think this is often, because this is like it's a selling point, so it's because you're feeding people is a selling point?
Well, most of the people only know things about movies. So Ex Machina wants to kill the guy. I don't tell you the end of the movie. Her, she gets in love with another artificial intelligence. Well, tell me one movie about artificial intelligence which is not bad for humans. All of them are bad for humans. So what do you want? I mean, the average person will... look, Black Mirror, which is a fantastic series. All of them are a drama. I mean, all of them. I mean, there is not one movie, because that doesn't sell. You don't watch happy stories. Happy stories are not a selling point. Never sell anything. So you need, stress, hard things. But I give you the example of the old people, because that I've been myself thinking how to program all these things. My mother uses less than 1,000 words, less than 1,000 words. I counted. Okay, I can tell you this is a fact. Okay, I counted. The sentences she says are, with minor modifications, the very same sentences. The answers she's waiting for are the same. Okay, the very same. Okay, so she's asking for me to ask, how is your ankle? I mean, how is your whatever? Did you go to the hairdress? And it's amazing. It's very simple. My mother, I'm there, but there are very many people that don't have anybody. Would that be okay that she receives a phone call with a sweet voice saying, Conchita, how are you doing today? Well, I have the pain there. Really? The drug didn't work? Oh, yes. Those are very trivial. May I say, I don't know if you follow these things, natural language processing. There is a breakthrough in 2018, which is called BERT, okay? BERT. So this is the first time that we have discovered that to understand the sentence, you don't have to go along the line of speech, but you can go backwards. Actually, your brain goes like that. So now that we have learned that, we transform every word into a vector, and we look for the correlations. Turns out that now we understand the meaning of things. So in BERT, you can download it, and you can do your questions and answers and all these things. It's amazing, the progress, day by day. This morning, every day. So whether there will be good things there, I think so. There are dangers. I can tell you one danger immediately. As soon as the assistant, the Siri, the Alexa, the Cortana, you will choose the voice, will be sweet like in her. Okay, will be very nice. I want to listen to that voice. And then it will tell, so how was it today at work? Well, usual pain with my colleagues and so on. Come on, don't pay attention. You know that you are doing well with that. And then sometimes could contradict me. Just for the first, like chess, it would beat me sometimes. We program chess to play at my level, okay? We could adapt intelligence. I'm not talking about future, which is 50 years away. No, we are talking about 5 years here, okay? So will I be ready to ask my personal assistant things? Of course. May I ask him, should I marry this guy? Of course. Okay, because after receiving 20 or 30 good advices, could I ask about my personal life to an algorithm? Of course you will. Should I do whatever? Should I go out with that girl? Of course you should, because come on, don't stay at home and so on. So be ready for. I don't know. I would call these things good, not bad. Okay, but I think that this will happen very, very soon. Sorry to take you so long.
I think you are right. It's happening, so we should be ready. Does anybody want? I think it's a very interesting discussion. We could be here. I don't know. You don't have time, hours and hours, because there is really so many issues that come. But does anybody wants to participate with more thoughts or whatever? Go ahead.
More than a question, I have a reflection about if artificial intelligence is going on right now. Maybe we should adapt right now and focus our education into people knowing more about ethics, including these people into politics, and begin this training right now because we are lacking of time. I mean,
I completely agree.
and is this happening in any way?
No, absolutely not.
So maybe the politicians right now, we should, in the society, we should get ready for this change in this way.
I completely agree. Look, I happen to be giving a talk to certain high-level people in Spain, and the reaction was exactly what you said. But why don't you come and talk? They were mentioning all the relevant people for education, because many people understand now that education should have a very heavy component of ethics, because we will live with that. You know, let me say the other way around. All these first steps of controlling your data, okay, that now have to be trained on the kids, because otherwise they behave in a random way. It's a first step. But now they should understand that they are delegating their decisions, which is more crazy. So should these be taught at school? In my opinion, it's so clear. And let me say, people should know what is a code, what is a program. I don't understand why a person in the 21st century doesn't have the very minimum idea of what is a code. That is wrong, in my opinion. There was another comment?
Thank you so much for your lecture. It's been one of the most interesting ones we have had in here so far, in my opinion.
Don't say so.
So, the major threat to artificial intelligence is not falling into this bias you were talking about. How is the advance on this field? Like, how we avoid artificial intelligence to fall into this in order to make decisions?
Yeah. Well, first of all, things are going on with bias now, okay? With bias. So there is no stopping of this, in particular in China and things like that. How I do think is with the laws. I do believe in democracy. I know many people don't. I do believe in co-decision. What is the system we have? We have a parliament that represents us, should represent, all the diversity of, I'm a scientist, I should be represented, the taxi drivers, everybody should be represented in a way or another there. And there is a place where you make the laws, and then there is a government that executes the laws, and then there are the judges that control the laws. I think this is the right way of proceeding with artificial intelligence. I don't think we need anything extra. We need laws, and we need the government implementing that. Yet, how we make laws with co-decision. So that's why in the parliaments have committees, which are expert committees. Okay, and that's correct. And off top, you need guidelines. So what I show you on April 9, those are the guidelines of an expert committee of 52 people in the European Union. Not the right way. 52 experts, including technicians, people in technology, philosophy and business. All of them have come with a very basic document that serves the purpose of producing laws. That's good. Okay? Now, the problem we have is that, in general, the parliaments are so slow that rather than preventing things, correct the mistakes. Okay, that's what typically happens. So I foresee that the same will happen with artificial intelligence. I think that someday something bad will happen, and at that point, there will be a mess. Look, you know what? I make a prediction. You will remember me in the future. I make a prediction at some point in the United States of America, there will be somebody suing Instagram or whatever, because as a kid, they were allowed to use something that produced dispersion in their mind, and they would not pay attention to things, and finally they had a poor career. And they will sue these people. Another way would be to have a law here and say, no, kids should not be on the internet 5 hours a day. This should not be possible. And you should enforce that law. Okay? So that's what I think. What else? I mean, if we don't use our laws, if we don't use the parliament, I mean, what can you do for the mass of the people? No? I mean, been trying to push that there are things like that in media, but, well, if you talk to the journalists, if you talk to the radio people, I mean, they don't understand. They think that politics is the only relevant thing on earth. Whereas the instrument of change of society is science. We are so different from a century ago because of science, not because of politics.
Some more questions?
¿Una última?
No?
Tú conoces a todos. Tú conoces a todos.
Thank you for the nice presentation. Regarding bias as well, as I think maybe it's something inherent to humans in life, because you can adapt or modify, I don't know, a way of thinking if you learn the things you believe that are correct or not. That's something that we can solve, or it's a challenge that we can overcome in these computers or systems.
Yeah, I think you're right that everybody has a bias. You have your bias, I have my bias. But the laws have to be as less biased as possible in favor of any of us. I can give you the example of, I don't think we need artificial intelligence. We can do it with humans. It's like, you don't need a supercomputer to write a letter. You can do it with a PC, okay? So each problem doesn't need amazing apparatus to solve it. Let me give you the example of Singapore, that I'm going to live there for many years in the future. Well, Singapore is a very poorly understood country in Spain. The amount of lies is unbelievable. Well, Singapore had to deal with 4 religions, 4 languages, all together in 30 kilometers by 25. How do you do that? Well, what they did is the following. I give you an example. 16 days of vacation, 8 days are for religions, 8 are non-religious. 8 divided in 4, 2 days each religion had to choose a vacation. So the Catholics have, as you can imagine, Easter and Christmas. The Indians have whatever. The Malaysians have another. Well, that's a way. There is a bias if I'm Christian, of course. There is a bias if you're Hindu, of course. Can we arrange it? Of course, we can arrange it. We can simply make a reasonable law that is okay with all of us. About language learning, you can see that this is an example of a country where half of the ministers are scientists, let me say, half of them, and they have a rational way of dealing with energy, with water, with whatever. They sit, they discuss. The best minister is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because they are surrounded by hundreds of millions of Muslims, and they need intelligent people there. There are ways of solving every issue, and I don't see why it shouldn't be. Of course, everyone has its own way of thinking, but that doesn't forbid to live together in the right way. Okay, I think now we are way far.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your presentation and for this discussion that I think is very, very, very good. My question is, going back to science fiction, and we talk about movies. we have an example of two movies. One is Matrix, that machines can want to dominate humans, and the other is Blade Runner, that machines wants to be humans. So yeah. So my question is, you think that we can train a machine to have empathy?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
Because empathy is not something that have the machine, is something that the machine has to see to other people.
Now, technically, as I said previously, the moral test is easily passed by artificial intelligence. It's much more difficult to make artificial intelligence to understand two Scottish guys in a bar with a soccer team. That is a difficult task. Just to have empathy with you, that's very easy to program. Very easy. Very easy. No, I'm not kidding. I mean, the original Turing test is much more difficult to pass than the moral Turing test. Much more difficult. Technically, much more difficult. And again, I like to bring again the idea that every movie has a negative issue. No, I mean, in all of them, replicants want to come back and not die, and the others are. Well, all the movies are like that. When I wrote this book on ethics for machines, I wanted to have the final thing is a bibliography, no? And at some point I said, "You're a crazy man. Nobody reads nowadays. So why don't you bring movies?" And I made a list of movies, and there are like 30 movies there that are related to these ideas. You would enjoy them because some of them are not well known, and it's fun. It's fun. But well, you agree with me that you have a bias. We have a bias, the thinking that the machines. Do you care about koalas? Not really. Amoebas? Do you care? If you walk and you see ants, do you step on that, or you try not to step? You don't step on that. No? So why do you think then that an artificial intelligence would be bad on us? The natural thing is that when you are free of all these conditioning, you're a good guy. I mean, there is no pleasure in killing no. You respect things. Look, I'm not kidding. The more advanced levels of society in each civilization, what they have done, they have paint, they have make sculptures, they have composed amazing music. The high level of the German culture was after the gymnasium. Planck was an orchestra director. Okay. So the high level is not violent. You simply want to create art or whatever. So why do you try to think that an artificial intelligence would not? Robocop or whatever. I mean, really, it's a bias we have. No, I think it will be very, very safe to live together with these machines.
So I'm very, very happy that you are positive and not afraid about the progress of an artificial intelligence. I also like to think on a world where this artificial intelligence is helping us, because what it is clear is that they handle much more information that we can handle. And this Watson machine, of course, she or he made an error. But yeah, that's clear that it's difficult for us to have all this information sometimes, and also to take the right decisions. No? You mentioned that you have those panels of experts discussing all these ethical issues. But I was thinking while you were speaking, what happens? Could it be the point in which we are managed, our countries, there is no politicians anymore. Our countries are managed by a computer.
Well, there was a poll in North America whether they would prefer a president which is a Democrat, a Republican, or an artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence got 25% of votes. I think that now it would receive 50%. In particular, I would vote for that. I give you an example. I'm a physicist, so I'm particularly angry with the policy of energy that we have in this country. Okay? Why don't we do the following? There are how many? 300 countries, but let's take the first 50 countries. in the world, in economy. Look at the policies of energy, and look at the well-being in terms of, of air, contamination, waters, everything. Look at the money it costs, look at the economy, look at everything. And try to correlate what are the policies that produce the best in 50 countries. Okay? And then you will infer, you will interpolate, you will do something much better than every country individually. I would vote for that. But wouldn't you? I mean, we have one set of people in the government. You change them, they change the policy. So obviously there is none of them is good. They are biased. So why don't we apply Bayesian inference for that? I would vote for that. I would. Just like the water in Barcelona is now purified by artificial intelligence. And many other things are done like that. Many. I don't know if... But for instance, trucks that you see every day on the road. Okay, Henkel has 400 trucks every day delivering. Do you think that there is a human deciding the road, what is the distribution? No, it's artificial intelligence. Do you think that when you ask things for Globo or from Deliveroo bring you things at home, it's decided by a human? No. All of these things are optimization problems which are handled by genetic algorithms, by neural networks, by things like that. So of course, artificial intelligence is taking care of our society. So why not politics? No?
Will they take care also of the ethics?
Well, there are people claiming that this should be the next step, no? That ethics itself is artificial. Yeah.
So I think we have to stop because we
thank you
are
very
far behind. I would like to continue. Thank you to you. It was really, really interesting. I did not give the chance to anyone that is connected, whether if they have a question, Roger. There is anybody? No? Sí. So, what should we do? Let me see. We have now this coffee break, which has supposed to start at 11, and it's almost 11:30. But it was not your fault. I think it was my fault and the fault of everyone, because we were just enjoying. So I would suggest to have a shorter coffee break if it's possible, instead of half an hour, maybe 15 minutes. So everything is prepared outside, and I wait for you back in about, 10, 15 minutes here. Thank you.